Hare Krishna, everybody. Welcome back to the daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books, where we step out of time and space. Forget about the problems of this material existence and relish the association of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his eternal associates together with the other Vaishnavas. This is actually the goal of life, to develop an attachment for hearing the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his loving associates. Especially Sri Caitanya-caritämrta is special. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur explained that specialness in a very poetic and wonderful way. Just after he gave a lecture in Munjer, an earth tremor caused a mild flooding of the adjacent Ganga. The water came up, but then it soon receded. And just after that, Srila Saraswati Thakur said this: in due course, Mahapralaya, devastating floods, will inundate the entire universe. If you attempt to survive by swimming in that deluge, then do not neglect to take hold of Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, and Sri Caitanya-caritämrta. Or if you cannot hold all three, then release Bhagavad Gita. If necessary, you may also relinquish Srimad Bhagavatam. But under no circumstances release your hold on Sri Caitanya-caritämrta. For if this one book remains, then the flood can do no actual damage, because after it has subsided, the message of Shastra can be revived from Sri Caitanya-caritämrta alone, it being the essence of all Shastra. Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. So moving right along, we've reached Ädi-lilä, chapter 14, verse 37. He's always asking me for every little thing, like as if I'm going to say no, if you can use my foot. We're beginning with text 37. And we're getting a bird's eye view of the Lord's childhood pastimes. On one occasion, the Lord ate the food of a Brahmana guest 3 times. And later, in confidence, the Lord delivered that Brahmana from material engagement. Purport. The story of the deliverance of this Brahmana is as follows. A Brahmana who was touring all over the country, traveling from one place of pilgrimage to another, reached Navadvip and became a guest in the house of Jagannath Mishra. Jagannath Mishra gave him all ingredients for cooking, and the Brahmana prepared his food. When the Brahmana was offering the food to Lord Vishnu in meditation, child Nimai came before him and began to eat it. And because of this, the Brahmana thought the whole offering had been spoiled. Therefore, by the request of Jagannath Mishra, he cooked for a second time. But when he was meditating, the child again came before him and began to eat the food, again spoiling the offering. By the request of Jagannath Mishra, the Brahmana cooked for a third time. But for a third time, the Lord came before him and began to eat the food, although the child had been locked within a room and everyone else was sleeping because it was late at night. Thus, thinking that on that day Lord Vishnu was not willing to accept his food and that he was therefore ordained to fast, the Brahmana became greatly agitated and cried aloud, "Hi, hi! What has been done? What has been done?" When Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu saw the Brahmana in that agitated state, he told him, "Formerly, I was the son of Mother Yashoda. At that time, also you became a guest in the house of Nanda Maharaj, and I disturbed you in this way. I am very much pleased by your devotion. Therefore, I am eating the food you have prepared." Understanding the favor offered to him by the Lord, the Brahmana was greatly pleased, and he was overwhelmed with love of Krishna. He was thankful to the Lord, for he felt himself greatly fortunate. Then the Lord asked the Brahmana not to disclose the incident to anyone else. This pastime is very elaborately explained in the Chaitanya Bhagavat, Adi-kanda, chapter 5. Text 38. In his childhood, the Lord was taken away by two thieves outside his home. The Lord, however, got up on the shoulders of the thieves, and while they were thinking they were safely carrying the child to rob his ornaments, the Lord misled them, and thus instead of going to their own home, the thieves came back to the home of Jagannath Mishra. Purport. In his childhood, the Lord was profusely decorated with gold ornaments. Once upon a time, when the Lord was playing outside his house, two thieves passing on the street saw the opportunity to rob him. Therefore they took him on their shoulders, pleasing him by offering him some sweetmeats. The thieves thought that they would carry the Lord to the forest and then kill him and take away the ornaments. The Lord, however, expanded his illusory energy upon the thieves, so much so that instead of carrying him to the forest, they came right back in front of his house. When they came before his house, they became afraid because everyone from the house of Jagannath Mishra and all the inhabitants of that quarter were busy searching for the child. Therefore the thieves, thinking it dangerous to remain, went away and left him. The Lord was brought within the house and given to Mother Shachi, who was in great anxiety, and she became satisfied. This incident is also elaborately explained in the Adi-kanda of Chaitanya Bhagavat, third chapter, text 39. Pretending to be sick, the Lord asked some food from the house of Hiranya and Jagadish on the Ekadashi day. Purport. The Chaitanya Bhagavat, Adi-kanda, chapter 6, fully describes the Lord's accepting Vishnu prasadam on the Ekadashi day at the house of Jagadish in Hiranya. Regular prasadam is offered to Lord Vishnu on Ekadashi because although fasting is recommended for devotees on Ekadashi, it is not recommended for Lord Vishnu. Once on Ekadashi in the house of Jagadish in Hiranya Pandit, there were arrangements for preparing special prasadam for Lord Vishnu, and Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked his father to go there to ask for the Vishnu prasadam because he was feeling sick. The house of Jagadish and Hiranya Pandit was situated about 2 miles from the house of Jagannath Mishra. Therefore, when Jagannath Mishra, on the request of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, came to ask Jagadish and Hiranya for the prasadam, they were a little astonished. How could the boy understand that special prasadam was being prepared for Lord Vishnu? They immediately concluded that Nimai must have some supernatural mystic power. Otherwise, how could he understand that they were preparing special prasadam? Therefore they immediately sent the food to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu through his father, Jagannath Mishra. Nimai was feeling sick, but immediately after eating the Vishnu Prasadam, he was cured, and he also distributed the Prasadam among his playmates. Text 40. As usual for small children, he learned to play, and with his playmates he went to the house of neighboring friends, stealing their eatables and eating them. Sometimes the children fought among themselves. Text 41. All the children lodged complaints with Shachimata about the Lord's fighting with them and stealing from the neighbors' houses. Therefore sometimes she used to chastise or rebuke her son. Text 42. Shachimata said, "Why do you steal others' things? Why do you beat the other children? And why do you go inside others' houses? What do you not have in your own house?" Purport. According to the Vedanta Sutra, Janmad Yasya Yataha, since creation, maintenance, and annihilation exist in the Supreme Absolute, whatever we find within this material world is already in the spiritual world. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna himself. How he is stealing and how is he fighting? It is not as a thief or an enemy, but as a friend in the loving condition. He steals as a child, not because he has a want, but out of natural instinct. In this material world also, small children, without enmity or bad will, sometimes go to a neighboring house and steal, and sometimes they fight. Krishna also, like other children, did all these things in his childhood. Without the existence of the stealing propensity and fighting propensity in the spiritual world, they cannot exist here in this material world. The difference between the spiritual and the material worlds is that stealing in the spiritual world is done in friendship and love, whereas fighting and stealing within this material world are executed on the basis of enmity and envy. We should understand that in the spiritual world all these activities exist, but there is no inebriety, whereas in the material world all activities are full of miserable conditions. Text 43. Thus rebuked by his mother, the Lord would go in anger to a room and break all the pots within it. Text 44. Then Shachimata would take her son on her lap and pacify him, and the Lord would be very much ashamed, admitting his faults. Purport. There is a nice description of the faults of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in his childhood in the Chaitanya Bhagavat, Adi-kanda, chapter 3, where it is said that as a child, the Lord used to steal all kinds of eatables from the houses of neighboring friends. In some houses he would steal milk and drink it, and in others he would steal and eat prepared rice. Sometimes he would break cooking pots. If there were nothing to eat, but there were small babies, the Lord would tease the babies and make them cry. Sometimes a neighbor would complain to Shachimata, "My child is very small, but your child puts water in his ears and makes him cry." Text 45. Once the child, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, chastised his mother with his soft hand, and his mother pretended to faint. Seeing this, the Lord began to cry. 46. The neighboring ladies told him, "Dear child, please bring a coconut from somewhere, and then your mother will be cured." He then went outside the house and immediately brought 2 coconuts. All the ladies were astonished to see such wonderful activities. 48. Sometimes the Lord would go with other children to bathe in the Ganges, and the neighborhood girls would also come there to worship various demigods. Purport. According to the Vedic system, when small girls, 10 or 12 years old, would go to the bank of the Ganges to take their bath, they would especially worship Lord Shiva with prayers to get good husbands in the future. They especially wanted to get a husband like Lord Shiva because Lord Shiva is very peaceful and at the same time most powerful. Formerly, therefore, small girls in Hindu families would worship Lord Shiva, especially in the month of Vaishakha, April-May. To take a bath in the Ganges is a great pleasure for everyone, not only for adults, but for children also. Text 49. When the girls engaged in worshipping the different demigods after bathing in the Ganges, the Lord would come there and sit down among them. Text 50. Addressing the girls, the Lord would say, "Worship me, and I shall give you good husbands," or good benedictions. The Ganges and Goddess Durga are my maidservants. What to speak of other demigods? Even Lord Shiva is my servant. Purport. There is a misconception about the Hindu religion among people who profess other religions, such as Christians and Muslims, who say that in the Hindu religion there are many gods. Actually, that is not a fact. God is one, but there are many other powerful living entities who are in charge of different departments of administration. They are called demigods. All the demigods are servants who carry out the orders of the Supreme Lord, the personality of Godhead. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu disclosed this fact in his childhood. Out of ignorance, sometimes people worship the demigods to receive some particular boon, but actually, one who becomes a devotee and a worshipper of the Supreme Personality of Godhead does not need to go to the demigods for any benediction, because he obtains everything by the grace of the Supreme Lord. The Bhagavad Gita 7:20 and 28 therefore condemns such demigod worship. Kamais taistair rityajnana prapadyantain devataha tam tam niyamamastaya prakritya niyatak swaya. Only persons whose intelligence is lost and who are mad with lusty desires worship the demigods and follow the particular rules and regulations of worship according to their own natures. Yesham twantakatam papam jananam punja karmanam te dvandvo mohanir mukta bhajante mam dridavrataha. But persons who are freed from all sinful activities and the duality of delusion engage themselves in the worship of the Supreme Personality of Godhead with determination. Only the less intelligent worship the demigods for their various purposes. The most intelligent worship only the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. Sometimes we, the members of the Krishna consciousness movement, are accused of not approving of the worship of demigods. But how can we approve of this when it is condemned by Lord Chaitanya and Lord Krishna? How can we allow people to become foolish and rityajnana, bereft of intelligence? Our propaganda is simply meant to enable intelligent people to understand the distinction between matter and spirit, and understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the whole spiritual identity. That is our mission. How could we mislead people into worshiping so-called gods in material bodies within this material world? Our position of not allowing worship of the many hundreds of demigods was confirmed by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu even in his childhood. Srila Narottam Das Thakur has sung in this connection, Anya Devashraya Nai Tomara Kinubai E Bhakti Padama Karana. Anya Devashraya Nai Tomare kahinubai e bhakti paramakarana. To become a staunch, pure devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead without deviation, ananya bhak, one should not divert his attention to the worship of the demigods. Such control is a symptom of pure devotional service. Text 51. Without the permission of the girls, the Lord would take the sandalwood pulp and smear it on his own body, put the flower garlands on his neck, and snatch and eat all the offerings of sweetmeats, rice, and bananas. Purport. According to the system of worship, when something is offered to deities outside one's home, it is generally not cooked food, but raw rice, bananas, and sweetmeats. Out of his causeless mercy, the Lord would snatch the offerings from the girls and eat them, admonishing the girls not to worship the demigods, but to worship him. This worship of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu is recommended in Srimad Bhagavatam. Krishna Varnam Tvisha Krishnam Sangopangastra Parshadam Yagyai Sankirtana Prayaya Yajanti Hi Sumeda Saha. One should worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who appears in this age of Kali with his associates as the Panchatattva. The Lord himself and his associates, Nityananda Prabhu, Sri Advaita Prabhu, Sri Gadadhar Prabhu, and Srivas Thakur. In this age, an intelligent person worships the Panchatattva by the method of chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra and, if possible, distributing prasadam. Our Krishna consciousness movement is introducing this bona fide method of worship in the Western world. Its members are going from village to village and town to town with deities of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, teaching people how to worship the Lord by chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, offering prasadam, and distributing prasadam to people in general. Text 52. All the girls became very angry at the Lord for this behavior. "Dear Nimai," they told him, "you are just like our brother in our village relationship." Text 53. "Therefore it does not behoove you to act like this. Don't take our paraphernalia for worship of the demigods. Don't create a disturbance in this way." Text 54. The Lord replied, "My dear sisters, I give you the benediction that your husbands will be very handsome." Text 55. "They will be learned, clever, and young, and possess abundant wealth and rice. Not only that, but you will each have 7 sons who will all live long lives and be very intelligent." Purport. Generally, it is the ambition of a young girl to have a very handsome husband who is learned, clever, young, and rich. According to the Vedic culture, one is rich if he possesses a large stock of food grain and a very large number of animals. Danyena dhanavan gabaya dhanavan. If one is rich if he possesses food grain, bulls, and cows. A girl also desires to have many children, especially sons, putra, who are very intelligent and long-lived. Now, because society has deteriorated, there is propaganda to have 1 or 2 children and kill the rest by contraceptive methods. But the natural ambition of a girl is to possess not only more than one child, but at least half a dozen. In exchange for the paraphernalia of worship he usurped for himself, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted to bless the girls to fulfill all their ambitions and desires. One can easily become happy and obtain the material benefits of a good husband wealth, food grain, and a number of nice children by worshipping Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Although Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepted sannyas at an early age, it is not necessary for his devotees to follow him by also taking sannyas. One can stay a householder, but one must be a devotee of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Then one will be happy with all the material opulences of a good home, good children, good mate, good wealth, and everything he desires. Therefore the Shastras advise, Jagyai Sankirtana Prayaya Yajanti hi Sumeda Saha. Every householder, therefore, who is actually intelligent should introduce the Sankirtan movement home to home and live peacefully in this life and go back to Godhead in the next. Text 56. Hearing this benediction from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, all the girls were inwardly very happy, but externally, as is natural for girls, they rebuked the Lord under the pretense of anger. Purport. This double dealing is natural for girls. When they are satisfied within, they externally show dissatisfaction. Such feminine dealings are very palatable to boys who try to make friendships with them. Text 57. When some of the girls fled, the Lord called them in anger and advised them as follows. If you are miserly and don't give me the offerings, every one of you will have an old husband with at least 4 co-wives. Purport. In India in those days, and even until 50 years ago, polygamy was freely allowed. Any man, especially of the higher castes, the Brahmanas and Vaishnavas, and particularly the Kshatriyas, could marry more than one wife. In the Mahabharata, or the old history of India, we see that Kshatriya kings especially used to marry many wives. According to Vedic civilization, there was no restriction against this, and even a man more than 50 years old could marry. But to be married to a man who had many wives was not a very pleasing situation, because the husband's love would be divided among his many wives. To punish the girls unwilling to offer him the Naivedya, Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu apparently wanted to curse them to be married to men who had at least 4 wives. The social structure allowing a man to marry more than one wife can be supported in this way. Generally, in every society, the female population is greater in number than the male population. Therefore, if it is a principle in the society that all girls should be married, unless polygamy is allowed, it will not be possible. If all the girls are not married, there is a good chance of adultery, and a society in which adultery is allowed cannot be very peaceful or pure. In our Krishna consciousness society, we have restricted illicit sex. The practical difficulty is to find a husband for each and every girl. We are therefore in favor of polygamy, provided, of course, that the husband is able to maintain more than one wife. Text 59. Hearing this supposed curse by Lord Chaitanya, the girls, considering that he might know something uncommon or be empowered by demigods, were afraid that his curse might be effective. The girls then brought the offerings before the Lord, who ate them all and blessed the girls to their satisfaction. Text 61. When this cunning behavior of the Lord with the girls became known to the people in general, it did not create misunderstandings among them. Rather, they enjoyed happiness in these dealings. Text 62. One day a girl of the name Lakshmi, the daughter of Vallabhacharya, came to the bank of the Ganges to take a bath in the river and worship the demigods. Purport. So Vallabhacharya was a father-in-law of Lord Chaitanya. Interesting. Purport. According to the Ganodesh Dipika 45, Lakshmi was formerly Janaki, the wife of Lord Ramachandra, and Rukmini, the wife of Lord Krishna in Dwarka. The same goddess of fortune descended as Lakshmi to become the wife of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Text 63. Seeing Mother Lakshmi Devi, the Lord became attached to her, and Lakshmi, upon seeing the Lord, felt great satisfaction within her mind. Text 64. Their natural love for each other awakened, and although it was covered by childhood emotions, it became apparent that they were mutually attracted. Purport. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Lakshmi Devi are eternal husband and wife. Therefore it was quite natural for their dormant love to awaken when they saw each other. Their natural feelings were immediately awakened by their meeting. Text 65. They both enjoyed natural pleasure in seeing each other, and under the pretext of demigod worship, they manifested their feelings. Text 66. The Lord told Lakshmi, "Just worship me, for I am the Supreme Lord. If you worship me, certainly you will get the benediction you desire." Purport. This is the same philosophy declared by Lord Krishna himself. Sarvadharman parityajya mamekam sharanam braja ahang tvam sarvapapebhyo mokchayishami ma shuchaha. Among all varieties of religion, abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender unto me. I shall deliver you from all sinful reaction. Do not fear. Bhagavad Gita 18:66. People do not understand this. They are accustomed to flattering or worshipping many demigods, human beings, or even cats and dogs. But when requested to worship the Supreme Lord, they refuse. This is called illusion. Factually, if one worships the Supreme Lord, there is no need to worship anyone else. For example, in a village of a limited area, one may use different wells for different purposes. But when one goes to a river, there is water constantly flowing in waves. But when one goes to a river where there is water constantly flowing in waves, that water can serve all purposes. When there is a river, one can take drinking water, wash his clothes, bathe, and so on. For that water will serve all purposes. Similarly, if one worships the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, all his goals will be achieved. Kamais taistaya ritagyana prapadyantain yadevata. Only men who have lost their intelligence worship the various demigods to fulfill their desires. Bhagavad Gita 7:20. Text 67. On hearing the order of the Supreme Lord, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Lakshmi immediately worshipped him, offering sandalwood pulp and flowers for his body, garlanding him with malika flowers, and offering prayers. Text 68. Being worshipped by Lakshmi, the Lord began to smile. He recited a verse from Srimad Bhagavatam and thus accepted the emotion she expressed. Purport. The verse quoted in this connection is the 25th verse of the 22nd chapter, 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. The gopis worshipped goddess Durga, or Katyayani, but their inner desire was to get Lord Krishna as their husband. Krishna, as Paramatma, could realize the ardent desire of the gopis, and therefore he enjoyed the pastime of Vastraharana. When the gopis went to bathe in the river Yamuna, they left their garments on the land and dipped into the water completely naked. Taking this opportunity, Krishna stole all their garments and sat down in the top of a tree with them, desiring to see the girls naked, just to become their husband. The gopis desired to have Krishna as their husband, and since it is only before her husband that a woman can be naked, to fulfill their desire, Lord Krishna accepted their prayers by this pastime of stealing their garments. When the gopis received their garments back from Krishna, Krishna recited this verse. My dear gopis, I accept your desire to have me as your husband and thus worship me. I wish your desire to be fulfilled because it deserves to be so. Purport. The gopis, the girlfriends of Krishna, were almost of the same age as he. Within their minds, they desired that Krishna be their husband, but because of feminine bashfulness, they could not express their desire. Therefore, later on, after stealing their garments, Krishna informed them, I immediately understood your desire and approved of it. Because I have now stolen your garments, you have presented yourselves before me completely naked, which means that I have accepted all of you as my wives. Sometimes foolish rascals, not knowing the purpose of the Lord or the purpose of the gopis, unnecessarily criticize from their own angle of vision. But the real purpose of Vastraharana is expressed by the Lord in this verse. Text 70. After thus expressing their feelings to each other, Lord Chaitanya and Lakshmi returned home. Who can understand the grave pastimes of Lord Chaitanya, Mahaprabhu? Text 71. When the neighboring people saw the naughty behavior of Lord Chaitanya, out of love for him, they lodged complaints with Shachi Mata and Jagannath Mishra. 72. One day Mother Shachi went to catch her son, wanting to rebuke him, but he fled from the spot. Although he is the maintainer of the entire universe, once the Lord sat upon some rejected pots in the pit where the remnants of food were thrown, after the pots had been used for cooking. Purport. Formerly it was the custom of Brahmanas to worship Lord Vishnu daily at home and cook food in new pots. This system is still going on in Jagannath Puri. The food would be cooked in earthen pots, all fresh and new, and after cooking, the pots would be thrown away. By the side of the house, there was generally a big pit where such pots were thrown. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu sat down on the pots, very pleasingly, just to give his mother a lesson. Text 74. When Mother Shachi saw her boys sitting on the rejected pots, she protested, "Why have you touched these untouchable pots? You have now become impure. Go and bathe in the Ganges." Text 75. Hearing this, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught his mother about absolute knowledge. Although amazed by this, his mother forced him to take a bath. Purport. The absolute knowledge explained by the Lord to his mother is described by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur in his Amrita Pravaha Bhasha as follows. The Lord said, "Mother, that this is pure and that is impure is surely a worldly sentiment with no basis in fact. You have cooked food for Lord Vishnu within these pots and offered the food to him. Then how then can these pots be untouchable? Everything in relationship with Vishnu is to be considered an expansion of Vishnu's energy. Vishnu, the super soul, is eternal and uncontaminated. How then may these pots be considered pure or impure?" Hearing this discourse on absolute knowledge, his mother was very much astonished and forced him to take a bath. Text 76. Sometimes taking her son with her, Mother Shachi would lie down on her bed and she would see that denizens of the celestial world had come there, filling the entire house. Text 77. Once Mother Shachi told the Lord, "Please go call your father." Receiving this order from his mother, the Lord went out to call him. 78. When the child was going out, there was a tinkling of ankle bells from his lotus feet. Hearing this, his father and mother were struck with wonder. Text 79. Jagannath Mishra said, "This is a very wonderful incident. Why is there a sound of ankle bells from the bare feet of my child?" Text 80. Mother Shachi said, "I also saw another wonder. People were coming down from the celestial kingdom and crowding the entire courtyard." Text 81. "They made noisy sounds I could not understand. I guess they were offering prayers to someone." Text 82. Jagannath Mishra replied, "Never mind what it is. There is no need to worry. Let there always be good fortune for Vishwambar. This is all I want." Text 83. On another occasion, Jagannath Mishra, seeing the mischievous acts of his son, gave him lessons in morality after rebuking him greatly. 84. On that very night, Jagannath Mishra dreamt that a Brahmana had come before him speaking these words in great anger. "My dear Mishra, you do not know anything about your son. You think him your son, and therefore you rebuke and chastise him." Jagannath Mishra replied, this boy may be a demigod, a mystic yogi, or a great saintly person. It doesn't matter what he is, for I think he is only my son." 87. It is the duty of a father to educate his son in both religion and morality. If I do not give him this education, how will he know of it? Text 88. The Brahmana replied, "If your son is a transcendental mystic boy with self-effulgent perfect knowledge, what is the use of your education?" Purport. The Brahmana Jagannath Mishra saw in his dream The Brahmana Jagannath Mishra saw in his dream told that his the Brahmana Jagannath Mishra saw in his dream told him that his son was not an ordinary human being. If he were a transcendental person, he would have self-effulgent knowledge, and thus there would be no need to educate him. Text 89. Jagannath Mishra replied, "Even if my son is not a common man, but Narayana, still it is the duty of a father to instruct his son." Text 90. In this way, Jagannath Mishra and the Brahmana discussed the principles of religion in the dream. Yet Jagannath Mishra was absorbed in unalloyed parental mellow and did not want to know anything else. Purport. In Srimad Bhagavatam 10.8.45 it is said, Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is worshipped with exalted hymns by all the Vedas and Upanishads, and by great personalities through Sankhya Yoga in the mode of goodness, was considered by Mother Yashoda and Nanda to be their own little son. Similarly, Jagannath Mishra also considered Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu his beloved little boy, although he is worshipped with all veneration by learned Brahmanas and saintly persons. Text 91. Being very pleased, the Brahmana left after talking with Jagannath Mishra, and when Jagannath Mishra awakened from this dream, he was very much astonished. 92. He related the dream to his friends, and relatives, and every one of them was very much astonished to hear of it. 93. In this way, Gaur Hari performed his childhood pastimes day after day, increased the pleasure of his parents. In this way, Gaur Hari performed his childhood pastimes and day after day increased the pleasure of his parents. We'll close our reading for the day. Nice stopping place. We'll go to another phase of his childhood tomorrow. If anyone has any reflections or discussion they want to have or whatever, please be our guest. Hare Krishna.
Vaisheshika Prabhu says Hare Krishna.
Vaisheshika Prabhu, you have a lot more to say than Hare Krishna, although Hare Krishna contains everything. We're just waiting for you to tell us something, some nectar. Radharaman has something. He's giving a cameo appearance tonight.
But it's only if there was nothing else there, because I had a question from last night.
Really?
Or something that...
Really? It's been on your mind, has
Yeah.
it? Okay, let's hear it. This is Radharaman asking a question from last night, or a reflection from last night.
It says in the first verse of the chapter, things that are very difficult to do become easy to execute if one somehow or other simply remembers Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But if one does not remember him, even easy things become very difficult. To this Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, I offer my respectful obeisances. Maharaj, I was wondering if you could offer some further elucidation on this and how we can apply it in practical life.
Yeah, always remember Lord Chaitanya and never forget him. And therefore everything that you do will be easier rather than more difficult. If you don't believe me, try it. Prove me wrong. This is the actual formula that that Rupa Goswami gave us, that all the rules and regulations in the revealed scriptures are actually the servants of two rules. Always remember Krishna and never forget him. So this is the practical application of that instruction by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Well, it's actually Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami that's saying it, but it means that Lord Chaitanya is the same as Krishna, that Lord Chaitanya is Krishna. So always remembering Krishna and never forgetting him, that's the master instruction. And all other rules and regulations are the servants of that rule and regulation. And therefore, if you actually perform that, or follow that rule and regulation, then anything that you do will be easier to do. Why? Because you'll be happy. By remembering Lord Chaitanya, by always remembering him and never forgetting him, your mind becomes surcharged with happiness. So what makes things difficult is unhappiness. And if you're happy, even if things are difficult, they don't seem difficult. Hare Krishna. Next.
Something from Sarva.
O Sarva, Hare Krishna.
He says, this question is not related to the reading and may be foolish, but I was reading in Tamal Krishna Goswami's book, Servant of the Servant, that when Srila Prabhupada was in London in 1970, although his health was all right, due to his advancing age, he told Goswami Maharaj and Mukunda, quote, if I ever die, you take my body by plane to Mayapur and lay it to rest there. Can you share any thoughts on why Prabhupada ultimately decided to depart from this world in Vrindavan instead of Mayapur?
They're not different. Mayapur and Vrindavan are the same. Prabhupada said once, Vrindavan's my home, Bombay is my place, my office, and Mayapur is my place of worship. So he went home. Hare Krishna. Anything else? Something? Okay, that's it for today, folks. Sri Caitanya-caritämrta ki jai. Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Go Premanandi Hari Hari Bol. See it.
Rati Manjari has a question.
Rati Manjari. She's always. I was going to interrupting Rati Manjari. Go ahead, Rati. You're never interrupting.
She says, Dear Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances.
I got to give him more time to type. That's what it is. Okay.
If I may ask a question not directly related to the reading of tonight.
You know what that usually means? That they've got some kind of contradictory thing that they want to try to get reconciled or something. Go ahead.
I've heard that Lord Krishna considers the worship of his devotees higher than worship of him directly. I was wondering if you would like to elaborate on this point. Is this because the Lord loves his devotees? Is this because the Lord loves his devotees so much, or is it to teach us to become humble and the servant of the servant? Or
all of the above. Because we chant every day, Sakshatri Twina Samastraya, Uttastata Bhavate Visambi, Kintu Priya Evatasya, Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinda. We worship the spiritual master because he's very dear to Krishna. So, and there's also that verse, Vishnu Aradhanandanam, that of all the worships, Vishnu is the highest, and higher than worship of Vishnu is those things that are related to Vishnu. Because, Krishna is a person, and elevated persons would rather see their dear ones, treated nicely than themselves. That's one of the symptoms of humility and cultured gentlemanliness. A gentleman doesn't want to have him hear his own praise, but he loves to hear his son praised, or his relatives, or his even his business or country or whatever. He likes to hear that praise more than hearing himself praised. if someone likes to hear himself praised, that's not very tasty, not very nice. Isn't it? Isn't it? So, of course, everything that the Lord does is teaching us, but He doesn't. He acts naturally. He's not, a teacher in that sense. I mean, sometimes when He's instructing Arjuna, He becomes the teacher when Arjuna asks Him to become His spiritual master and to teach him, then He teaches him. But He also says that I'm giving you all this nectarine knowledge because you're my devotee and my friend. So, madbhaktim pujabjadika. There's another verse where Krishna says that if one worships me, if one worships my devotee, is more pleasing than if he worships me. Because the devotees of Krishna are His life and soul. They're very, very dear to Him. And it's also good for the devotee because the Lord is the most exalted person, especially Radha and Krishna worship is the most exalted worship, and it's possible to make offenses. It's just like if two persons are in a conjugal relationship, and you stick your nose in their business, very easy they can get disturbed. Say just the wrong thing or do the wrong thing, and upset one or the other, and very delicate. So. So like that, we worship the servant of the Lord because they're dear, and we worship the servant of the Lord because they're more dear. It's just the opposite. In the material world, we make a material calculation, and we think of someone, if we can get close to someone, then that will make us more dear. But in the spiritual world, if you try to get too close to Radha and Krishna, especially if you don't have the right consciousness, that can be a disaster. Familiarity breeds contempt, and it can your spiritual life can blow up in your face. Possible. It's happened before. So for all these reasons, and above and more, and many more that I can even think of, then there's another verse in the 11th canto of Bhagavatam where the Lord says, "It is my desire to purify the earth by the dust of the lotus feet of my devotees." So it's natural. It's natural. You befriend the loved one of someone, and automatically you become dear to them. Okay? Hare Krishna.
She says, "Thank you, that is so nice to hear. I have read that Krishna is by nature very humble, and I think that is so wonderful."
Yeah, He's supremely humble. He's supremely everything. And all contradictions are reconciled within Him, because everything He does is absolutely wonderful. Supremely wonderful. That's why we take so much pleasure in hearing those little details about Lord Chaitanya as a child, as a baby growing up, the kind of things that He did to cause ecstatic symptoms in His devotees. He does all these things because He loves His devotees so much.
Bhakti Manjari has another question.
Mm-hmm.
She says, we are supposed to seek advanced association, but we also hear that we are supposed to become the servant of the servant. Sometimes we may serve a devotee who is seemingly not so advanced. How do we reconcile this?
A person who's serving the servant of the servant of the servant is more advanced. Of course, everyone's on a different level of devotional service. I think that this idea is just concocted. It's just a concocted idea. You're trying to measure levels of advancement. It's like you got to, you're putting your service into a little measuring cup. But this one has, this one's more. This one's less. This one's more. This one's less. I mean, I suppose that there's some need in the beginning of devotional life, to be careful. But if you can't discriminate, then the best thing to do is to offer respects to everybody. And in the most advanced stage, one naturally offers respects to everyone. Therefore, the conclusion is you should offer respects to everyone and not measure that respect in a measuring cup. Oh, this one's not so advanced. I'm going to take out some of the service here for this one. Put more in this one because that one's a big gun or something. These are all external conceptions. Lord Chaitanya had as much love for Kulavesha Sridhar, who just lived in a paddy field practically, and made leaf cups out of banana leaves. Or maybe he sold them, even just sold the leaves for somebody else to make, whatever he did. It was a very simple life, and he had a little broken iron pot. That's all he had. His only possession. And he would go to him every day and drink from that pot and joke with him and have fun with him, play with him. He was as dear as Maharaj Pratiparudra or Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya and all these exalted devotees that were his elevated devotees. So we should see the service. We should see the service and worship that devotee because of the service they're rendering to please Krishna. Hare Krishna. If everyone was doing that, just see what a nice society we'd have. Sounds like a good idea. Now we're worshipping in a very unprecedented way Bhakti Churu Maharaj. He left so suddenly and so unexpectedly, and just everybody was shocked. And his disciples are, grieving, deeply grieving. But all of my godbrothers are pouring out, sometimes once and twice and three times. They can't get enough of glorifying him, so they're putting their glory, their tributes. And all of them have such wonderful experiences with him. And the overarching thing was just how sweetly he dealt with everyone, how he showed affection for everyone, without exception. This is the spiritual world, the spiritual consciousness we should be in. And not that we should calculate, things by who's higher and who's lower. Didn't it say that the Panchatattva didn't consider who was higher, who were lower? Or there's another verse that states that in dealing with devotees, we should not see who was higher and who was lower. Treat everyone equally, affectionately. Appreciate the service of everyone, however little it was. I remember I was in New York, and I was doing the administration and finances especially, and Prabhupada came there. This was 1976 for Rath Yatra, and one day in the morning, Tamal Krishna Maharaj asked me to put the sandalwood pulp on Prabhupada's head, and I was very nervous actually. and I had never done that before. And I went very, very carefully, and the sandalwood pulp was a little watery in some areas, so I had to make sure that it didn't, drip down. And I did it as carefully as I could, and I kind of stepped back to look and see how it looked. And Prabhupada looked up at me, and he had an expression on his face, just like a child, 5-year-old. Oh, thank you so much. And there was so much love coming from that, just that little service, nothing. But I tried really hard. I tried to make it so nice. And then I understood that every service is important. And every devotee is important. In Vrindavan, even the trees are important, and the calves, and the birds, and all the living beings are fully Krishna conscious and are dear to Krishna and have ecstatic symptoms by watching Krishna in his pastimes, sometimes providing service by giving flowers or whatever. So try not so much to calculate, and in that way we'll head towards spontaneous devotion. That's not calculated. It's just like when a little child comes and gives you anything, little nothing, a little penny or a little twig or something they were playing with that became dear to them, and they come up to you and say, "Please, this is for you." Your heart automatically opens and automatically melts, because that's from pure affection. There's no ulterior motive, no strings attached. That's what we're looking for. Pure affection for Krishna and pure affection for Krishna's devotees. That's what creates a transcendental society, and that's what creates a loving devotion atmosphere. Okay?
Rati has another question. She says, how does what you have just stated about not measuring the level of other people's advancement refer to, for example, a mother who is busy the whole day serving her children, of whom it is not certain that they will turn out to be practicing devotees? How is she going to make advancement?
I can't even understand the question. How she will make advancement? By trying. We just heard about Mother Yashoda, about how Mother Yashoda would treat Krishna when he was being naughty or doing something, or Jagannath Mishra had that dream. The Brahman had chastised him because you're chastising the Lord because you're thinking he's just an ordinary, but he's actually, and Jagannath Mishra said, I don't care about that, he's my son, it's my duty. So we do our duties in Krishna consciousness, and we try our best. And what the other person does, whether the person becomes a devotee or not, that's up to him, that's up to Krishna. We can't force devotional service on someone. It's not wrong to feel affection for a son or for family members. It's natural. So my advice is to be as Krishna conscious as you can and set, the example. And it's up to the child to take. Just like we were born in another religion, another society, and but we came to Krishna consciousness because that's what we wanted to do. And our fathers were disappointed because we weren't good Jews or good Methodists or good whatever. okay, this is Rati's mercy because now I get to say again, but next time.
So she says, thank you, Guru Maharaj. Sometimes I go out on a limb, I know. Thank you for patiently answering my sometimes outlandish questions.
Anyway, sometimes you go out on a limb, as long as it's okay if you get back down off the limb and not saw it off while you're up on the limb and damage yourself, that's okay. Sri Caitanya-caritämrta ki jai. Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Rati Manjari's lovely questions and reflections ki jai. Gaur Premanandi. See you tomorrow. Same time, same station, same place, like lines on a stone. Hare Krishna.